All right, High Rollers, a real treat for all of us today as we go old school with a guy who's been playing professional poker since 1975. Not like some of these young gun online kids here today, gone tomorrow. No, he's been around for 4 decades, winning poker, folks. It's a game of longevity, and he's got it. The greats, Moss, Johnston, McAvoy, ask them. They know him. They've played against him. They've all shipped chips his way at one point or another. A consultant, real estate broker, and an author. Co-authored some 7 books, including How to Think Like a Poker Pro and How to Play Like a Poker Pro. And get this, folks, he's the senior columnist at Card Player magazine and has the longest running poker feature in the world. Bit of trivia there for you. Our high roller today, Mr. Roy Cooke. Roy, my pleasure, man. Thanks for being a high roller.
Good to be here, Derek.
Hey, listen, I can only imagine you've seen a lot of things in poker over the years, spanning back to 1975, the rise and fall of Stu Unger, Brunson's World Championships, Amarillo Slim, you played against Johnny Moss, of course Chris Moneymaker's win in 03, and the advent of online and televised poker. Can you talk about a few of the things that stand out for you over the years, perhaps for personal reasons or otherwise?
Well, I think the biggest thing that stands out is Chris Moneymaker and what that did for poker. I mean, it just rocketed the poker world into a totally new dynamic. Before that, it was kind of considered a game of a group of intelligentsia kind of playing against each other with a little bit of a shady reputation. And that just rocketed online poker into the mainstream, grew to the point where, we had 7,000 people playing the World Series of Poker.
Absolutely unbelievable. In 2003, when he wins, the game takes off. What was it like for you playing? Was it easy money?
It was like playing online was like clubbing baby seals. You had people who had zero poker experience, zero access to any intellectual poker advice, and they were coming online. Some of them were playing for big money and having 20, 30 years of Las Vegas poker experience. It put me in a good position against them.
Absolutely, like shooting fish in a barrel. You mentioned the shady reputation, or the stereotype at least, of poker. You've been playing a long time now. Did you see any shady things in live brick and mortar events or cash games? Anything, story you might have for us that stands out?
Well, I think any time that you put a lot of money into a situation, I think you're always going to have people who are looking for angles to game the system, and poker is no different from it. I mean, I was around the Stardust when they had all of the issues, at the Stardust. That brought, there was a lot of conversations about, shared bankrolls in the early days and all of the private games. And, I've seen most of the actual cheating that I caught is in private games.
And that's just what? Is that people working in tandem, or?
People working in tandem. I've seen situations where, people set up decks and that sort of thing.
Well, how would you handle a situation like that? You're traveling around trying to find games that are convenient for you to support your living. When you come across something like that back in the day, how would you personally handle it?
It depended upon the situation. I mean, in some situations I was comfortable coming out and saying things. In other situations where I was, not in a position of strength in the game that I was playing in, I would just basically avoid the situation and not put myself in trouble in the situation. One interesting story that is kind of my favorite cheating story, in the Pan game in a card room in Washington State about 30 years ago, a fellow reached into his pocket to pull out a cigarette and exchanged hands to pull out another hand, but unfortunately for him, he pulled out the wrong color. And he was sitting here, and everybody was playing with the blue deck, and he had orange cards. Totally unaware of it. He wasn't facing the cards, and it was kind of an interesting situation. It took a while for somebody to actually say something.
That's hilarious. Hey, Roy, you've been writing articles for a long time. Poker, I didn't realize this, but you've got poker's longest-running feature over there at Card Player Magazine, where you're the senior columnist. How did you get into the writing? And I guess the article writing was an offshoot that led into your books. 7 now, I guess.
Yeah, that's correct. They're just a collection of the columns I've written. There's one's a rule book, and one is how to run a home poker game. The rest are just all column collections. But originally, I got started with Card Player Magazine. I was just involved in a poker study group that involved some people who were currently writing for Card Player in there. Mason Malmuth was one of them. Skalansky was another one. Ray Z was another one. And I had done some writing early in my career. I was editor-in-chief of my high school newspaper. I thought that I would take my hand at it, and I actually rented a home from Linda Johnson when I first moved to town back when we were young kids.
One of the all-time greats right there.
Yes, done wonders for poker, Linda has. And so I asked her, and she gave me a shot, and she let me write 3 columns, and then from there it went, she gave me a space in the magazine, and from there I gradually, I won some popularity contests, and they made me the senior columnist.
Well, there you go. And I imagine, Roy, a wonderful outlet, I guess, over the years, too, not just from sitting in a card room playing, but another way to vent your opinions and your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful thing in my life, just from it's helped me meet people. It's definitely helped my business, my real estate business, giving me name recognition. And when poker players move to town, they have a tendency to call me first because they know me. And I like writing. I like doing it. I know I've helped a lot of people, and that just feels good to me.
Now, just a real quick question regarding Card Player Magazine and the atmosphere a couple of years ago when Barry wins the main event in the WSOPE, and then his son Jeff has a chance to win the main event of the WSOP. That must have been an incredibly exciting time at Card Player Magazine.
We were sure real happy about it, and there's a lot of ego between Barry and Jeff. Who the better poker player is, and I've actually I knew Barry Shulman when he was in his early 20s. I played poker with him. We were both from Seattle, Washington. And I remember the day Jeff was born. And they made an announcement in the card room that he had a son. So we go back, I'm going to say 38 years now, Barry and I do.
Well, there you go. Now listen, I'm curious. The 7 books, you've always had a famous poker player write the foreword, and I dare say no one's asked you this before, but of those famous people, Negreanu, Skalansky, Linda Johnson, Mike Caro, Chris Ferguson, Doyle Brunson, any foreword stand out for you as either something that meant personal or just the way it was written?
Well, it was special that all of them wrote for me, and I appreciate the fact that they did it, and just the fact that names that big are willing to support me and like my writing just means everything in the world to me. As far as one special, the fact that Doyle did it, he's the biggest name in the business, really had a lot of meaning to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It would to me, too. Hey, listen, I want to talk about a few other famous poker players. I don't want to date you, but I do want to say it's not often we get a chance to talk to someone who knows and played against Johnny Moss. I'm going to list some poker players, whether you knew them personally or not. If you could just give me a sentence or two on what you think they meant to you or to the game itself. And let's start with Johnny Moss.
I played a fair amount as a young kid with Johnny Moss when he was actually living at Binion's. He was in his later years and playing the 20-40 limit hold'em game at Binion's. He was a crusty old bugger. A very tough guy on the dealers, very tough on the people. He was not a warm and fuzzy guy by any means in the situation, and not somebody, I think, that put a good face on poker.
Really? Okay, some candid remarks there. Do you think, though, that demeanor helped him in the game? In other words, he may have intimidated people, much like a whiny Phil Hellmuth can do to novice players?
I think it does, and I think having an angry personality where you kind of seek adversity and you enjoy the fight can be a big psychological asset when you're playing poker. And he definitely had that. He always wanted to get in the fight.
All right, let's talk about Phil Hellmuth then. Not sure if you've ever met him or played against him. What do you think about that guy?
Well, he's a very different personality. He has done wonders for the marketing of poker, and he seems a bit narcissistic. He definitely loves drawing attention to himself, and in doing so, makes a great marketing personality for poker. I wouldn't say he's necessarily the most liked person in poker. He can have a very sharp demeanor and be very condescending at the poker table. But as far as like how he works on TV, I have heard many people tell me that this is all an act and that it's all a promotional persona that he puts on to be a promotional person in poker. But I used to play with him at the Stardust, I believe before he was old enough to even legitimately go into the Stardust, and the personality was just identical.
Really?
It's natural.
Okay. How about this guy? And rest in peace, Amarillo Slim.
I played at his tournament. I talked to him at his tournament several times. He obviously had some issues in later life that kind of slanted his legacy in the game, which is sad. But I mean, he was definitely a hustler. It was a good one.
He was quick with the tongue, but also with a prop bet.
That's correct. He made some amazing bets over his life. From playing ping pong with pans to he was always willing to gamble on anything. And I'm sure he led a very varied and interesting life.
How about Benny Binion? And were you around for the Moss Nick the Greek match?
I was not around for that, although originally when I first moved to town, I was playing at the Golden Nugget and playing sometimes at Binion's. When the Golden Nugget closed down, there was Binion over there. My wife actually started out as a graveyard cocktail waitress at the Union Plaza, and we used to have breakfast in the mornings down at Binion's, and Benny was down there all the time, and while I understand he had a history that a lot of people considered suspect, he was wonderful, warm, and fuzzy to both me and my wife on a daily basis whenever we saw him down at the coffee shop down at Binion's.
But one guy I'm always intrigued by, and his legacy, they made a movie about him, wrote a book, Stu Unger. Can you talk about him?
Boy, definitely an interesting character, definitely a super intelligent character. Has a poker tournament record that you would have a hard time saying that anybody else is equal. That said, he seems like he had some psychological issues that he didn't handle it well. Was always willing to gamble. Was kind of a gambling junkie, and didn't handle the lifestyle well at all. And that was his demise. He died with $40 in his pocket in a cheap hotel room here in Las Vegas, which is a sad ending for someone with such a great mind as what he had.
Yeah, he was a card savant, and it was a tragic ending. Perfect segue, I guess, into my next question. That's about you, Roy, and your particular style of play. You talk about Stu Unger at one end of the spectrum. I know that you're risk-adverse, got great money management, and perhaps that's why you've lasted so long and so many others haven't.
I agree with that, and I think not just from the financial standpoint, but also from the mental and emotional standpoint, that I have never been one to put my bankroll on the table. I was more of a chess player growing up than coming at it from being a gambler and looking to get into gambling. I was more of a gamesman. And the people who, I see people who fire it up, and I've seen them, at times look like they were going to win all the money in town, but it seems like as much as they soar up, they can fall off the cliff just as fast. And, lots of times when they do fall off the cliff, they never mentally and emotionally recoup. And you'll see lots of people who were bright, talented players totally unable to put their life back together. And I think that's common if you look at the low-limit games in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Roy, what do you think your legacy is going to be in poker? What would you like it to be?
I would like to be known as somebody who was instrumental in the beginning of online poker.
Well, let's talk about that then, and that gives us a chance to talk about your sponsor, Planet Poker. Tell us how you were instrumental at the very beginning days.
Well, originally a fellow by the name of Randy Blummer called me up and said that he was going to put together a company to start playing poker for money on the internet, and I kind of listened to the guy and talked to the guy, and when I hung up, I wondered what the hell the guy was.
Boy, were you wrong.
Yeah, and eventually they put together the program, and I maintained contact with it and became his cardroom manager, and also helped develop the second generation of software at Planet Poker that now we quit playing for real money when the UIEGA laws were passed, and is now a subscription site.
Well, let's talk about Planet Poker. I know it's got a great reputation. I mean, you're on board. You got a couple other big-name players. A great future ahead for not only Planet Poker, but online poker in general?
Well, I think this is all going to depend on the legal matters. And I mean, Planet is basically maintaining its base in the hopes that online poker will become legal in America. I do think that will happen. I think it's a matter of time. You're seeing moves forward in the situation right now, but I think that poker will come back on the internet. I think you'll have it as being a legal entity, and poker will rise again, and those who are prepared and ready for it when it opens up are going to have a huge advantage initially. There's the first squeeze of the lemon gets the most juice, and those who are ready to squeeze should have a lot of opportunity.
Well, you're with a great team over there, www.planetpoker.com, some good folks. Roy, I'm curious, you're an old school guy, been around for a long time. I'm wondering what you thought of the final table of this year, broadcast live on the internet and television. What you thought of watching poker on television, and if you thought this would ever happen so many years ago when you first began playing?
Initially, and I was involved in online gaming when they were bringing it on, and Steve Lipcon had the television cameras to see the hole cards. It was my opinion at the time, and this was another bad call that I made in my life. You happen to bring up all of my bad ones. Some good ones too. But I didn't think that it would be popular. I personally, and I don't watch poker on TV, as somebody who's played 65,000 hours of live poker,
right,
I would much rather go play than actually watch other people play. And I sit down with plenty. I'm playing 40-80 limit hold'em on a daily basis down at the Bellagio. I'm sitting down with excellent players. If I want to watch excellent players play, I can put nine of them at the table anytime I want to, living down here in Vegas.
There you go. You'd rather play than watch, and I understand that completely because that's what I'd like to be doing. I'm just not good enough, sadly. Roy Cooke, listen, man, been reading your articles for a long time. Know you're a great player. You're a fantastic interview, and I really appreciate it. And I'm going to give another shout-out to Planet Poker, which is www.planetpoker.com. Roy Cooke, our guest today on High Roller Radio. Roy, thanks so much.
All right. Thank you for having me, Derek. Enjoyed it.